Welcome to Module 2 of OL SOSOS 2. This module runs from Monday, February 1st to Sunday, February 7th. Note that this module is also of 1 week duration, just like Module 1. And I hope that you have become acclimated to the course through Module 1 and the questions and answers that have been exchanged in your groups and with me. This has also probably began to give you a sense of just how complex the topics of our study for this course are. Unfortunately, sometimes there's an awful lot of gray area in making ethical decisions and trying to create ethical organizations, as we saw from the Tattle Tale Case Study discussions. This is part and parcel of our subject area for this class, and something with which we will continue to struggle throughout the course and our careers. Complexity is added to this when the governance issue or consideration is invoked in the context of how leaders can impact this in positive or negative ways. This is the overview of Module 2. The theme for the module is looking inward. Our topics for discussion are the leader's character and combating evil. This is a critical segment of the course as we begin to delve into the topic of character and how even the best intentioned leaders can go down the wrong path because of internal or external pressures, and often disastrous for them and all their organizations. So in this module, we'll closely examine concepts in the course that are related to evil, combating evil, and the critical issue of forgiveness. Johnson tends to be quite earnest about the spirituality dimensions of this particular topic, and I hope you will wade through that dimension of it to get to some of the essential applications that he's addressing. Chapter 4 particularly tends to be somewhat controversial and even dark, if I should say, owing to the approach used and the discomfort that some of you may feel when recollecting an experience of evil in your own lives, and also how and when we deal with forgiveness, how we deal with forgiveness. Although difficult, I believe the reading will provoke thinking about some of the most disturbing events in recent decades. One of the major challenges to good governance is, in fact, combating evil and doing the right thing. The activities for the week, the case study will discuss the Barclays and Labor case study 1 in your Harvard course pack. There will be a library resources webinar. Rhonda Corbin of the KU library will organize a webinar. If you've not attended or participated in any of the webinars, it will be very good for you to do so, especially as I'm very particular on formatting, APA formatting especially, so, and how to cite and get peer review articles and company information, etc., for your final project. So it's important that you attend the webinar if you've not attended any of it before. And there's a bonus point of 2 for participation in the webinar. The readings are chapter 3 and 4, as I mentioned in our textbook. In the textbook, if you have the 6th edition, it doesn't matter. Although the required one is the 7th edition, the chapters you are reading, there are no much differences. Where there are differences, I will note that. So if you've already purchased, or if you did purchase the 6th edition instead of the 7th edition, you shouldn't worry, you should continue using it. There are a lot of optional readings. These are very interesting and important readings. You are not required to read them. They are optional, but I will encourage you to skim through them as they help with the case studies especially, and also expanding on our readings. There's also an optional video resource. It's an interesting video, although it's a bit dated, but the important learning aspect is there. So The first topic of our discussion is the leader's character. And in that, from the readings, you read about the virtues and the virtue of ethics. So to keep from projecting our internal enemies and selfishness on others, we need to go on the offensive, replacing or managing our unhealthy motivations through the development of positive leadership traits or qualities called virtues. We'll talk more about our unhealthy motivations as we go on in the class and our readings. The premise is that good people, though those of high moral character, make good moral choices. So philosophically, virtues are not easily developed or discarded, but they persist over time. Virtues shape the way leaders see and behave. The way leaders operate largely independent of the situation, and virtues help leaders live better lives. Positive psychology theory define virtues as morally valued personality traits. And we talk about character, the main theme of this module. Character strength for leaders include the following: courage, great temperance, wisdom, justice, optimism, integrity, humility, and compassion. Compassion, including kindness, generosity, and love. Take time to read this. All these are in the readings, and it will be good to understand each of these characters. It's also important to understand how habits are developed. Repeated routines designed to foster virtuous behavior. And Steve Covey gave 7 habits of highly effective people. You have to be proactive, begin with the end in mind, your end goal in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand, then to be understood, synergize, sharpen the saw. And the reading gives details of each of this. So pay attention and read. And I want to emphasize on habit 4, think win-win. Just because you are thinking win-win doesn't mean failures will not come into your pay. And they also become part of developing your habit. Your ability to overcome failures and learning from failures is important. Although the basic habit forming is to always think win-win. But you should also understand that failures will come. Our values serve as a moral compass to guide us. Values provide a frame of reference, helping us to set our priorities. Many discussions in organizations have an underlying value component, and working with a list of values can be really helpful. The second topic for this module is combating evil. And evil is a subject of controversy and debate. So when you are reading the text, weigh what scholars say and decide for yourself. The contemporary Western definitions of evil emphasize its destructiveness, and evildoers do excessive harm, going well beyond what is needed to achieve their objectives. Evil destroys self-esteem, physical and emotional well-being, relationship, communities, and nations. Johnson categorizes evil, the perspective of evil, into 6 key areas: dreadful pleasure, idealism, exclusion, bureaucracy, choice, ordinary. And he actually gives nice description of each of these perspectives. So evil as dreadful pleasure, you have to examine the motivations. Idealism, you have to examine the causes and ideals. Beware of biased speech. Take a pluralistic perspective. Step back to look at the big picture and the consequences of actions. Put the ethical burden squarely on your shoulders. Don't keep pushing it to others. We all have the potential to be evildoers, and this is really important. And it will show in some of the cases we'll be discussing, even the labor case. We all have that potential, so we have to be mindful of whatever we do. just as we need to offer forgiveness, we also need to ask to seek forgiveness. And as we see nearly every week, there seems to be a prominent figure apologizing for his or her misdeeds, especially politicians. Business and religious groups too are officially apologizing for past wrongs. Apologies can be highly beneficial. They help restore the dignity of victims and promote healing. And as I mentioned earlier, the Johnson goes very deep into spirituality and leadership. Spirituality and leadership has become really important, and there's a lot of literature on spirituality and how it affects organizational leadership and how the spirituality of leaders and followers affects organizational performance. A great number of leaders turn to spirituality to equip themselves as they make choices and attempt to forgive. And more academics, as I said, are studying the link between spiritual values and practices and organizational performance. Downsizing, restructuring, rapid change, information overload have generated fear and uncertainty in the workplace, which prompt us to seek meaning and stability. But there's also the dark side of spiritual leadership. Some leaders view spirituality solely as a tool for increasing follower commitment, that's obedience, and productivity that increases profit, losing sight of the fact that spirituality has value in and of itself. So when we talk about the people, planet, and profit, all the three should come together. But the dark side of spiritual leadership at times forget about the people and the planet. Other leaders try to impose their particular religious and spiritual views on followers. And in the worst case scenario, authoritarian leaders engage in spiritual abuse by controlling followers and demanding obedience and conformity. Our activities, as I mentioned, is case study 1, Barclays and the labor scandal. The case allows you to explore the challenges faced by leaders in operating in a corrupt system. The main objectives of this case are to understand a leader's responsibility to his or her firm and to the system. In this case, is the financial market when operating a corrupt and broken system. Understanding how a leader might consider how best to operate within such an ethically challenged system, and understanding a leader's ethical responsibility to authorities, governments, regulators, when they ask you to either bend or break the rules for the good of the system. How does one navigate in this environment? It is important, as I keep saying, that this should not be anecdotal. You have to reference the assigned readings. Your initial presentation and discussions should be academic, scholarly. So the case study discussions, in order to give your colleagues enough time to review and respond to your postings, the deadline for initial posting is 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, that's February 3rd, and you will not see any other posts until you have posted initial responses, and your initial responses should not be less than 300 words per question. You should, however, note that I place more emphasis on the quality and substance of the responses and not just the quantity. A minimum of 2 replies to the initial postings, 100 words minimum by your colleagues, should be submitted by Friday. You will then participate in the discussion with a minimum of 2 more comments. But the more comments you provide and engage in the discussion, the assurance of getting the full points. Group members and so late initial posting and replies may incur penalties. So it's important you participate at the right time and in the discussions. I'm looking forward to your group chatters today, and also what is due today is the group chatter. So I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to our discussions this week. Thank you.